going to deviate slightly from our program because the steering committee would like to acknowledge the presence of another special guest here with us today. Mathieu Kassovitch is here. He is a film producer and an actor from France, and he's here for the Toronto Film Festival. However, he has been present for all 4 days of these proceedings and has heard our witnesses' evidence, and we would be honored to have him join us for the question and answer period and give him a few moments to make some statements that he feels are important. Because this is a new edition, if you have any questions for Mr. Kassovitch, please pass them down across your row, and one member of the steering committee will collect them and bring them up to the moderators for questions. So if you can please give him a warm welcome.
Mathieu Kassovitch, bienvenue.
I'm not a little impressed. I'm very much impressed, and I don't really know if I can say anything without a proper question that I can answer. I've been, like I think many of you here have been studying 9/11 not since the beginning, because like most of the people out there, I had the tendency to believe what I've been fed with, and which is that our governments are protecting us and taking care of us. And even if I'm skeptic since I'm 12 years old, I still need to believe in our government. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I wasn't on board since day one. I started to study it when the commission gave the result, and like most of us, I watched Loose Change. And this 18-year-old kid who came up with a movie and no science behind it, nothing, just speculation. And 10 years after, he was mainly right. And so it got me into it, and of course I got into all kind of emotion states where you discover things. It's very exciting, and then it's very frightening, and then it's disgusting. And now, and after all this, I needed to come here to hear all these amazing people that I've been following on the internet since 2005, and Kevin, Niels, all these people, Mr. Griffin, it's crazy. So I came here with the intention, the secret intention to debunk all this, because at some point you really hope that all this is not true, and that because you don't want it to be true, you want your government to be what they're supposed to be, and you won't be able to go back home and take care of your family. But it's very difficult to do that once you came here, and after 4 days of it's overwhelming. And even if I knew all this before, and if I seen all these lectures, Mr. Griffin's lectures already on the internet, Mr. Gage lectures, Kevin Ryan's, I've seen that on the internet already. But to have all that to get put together, and all of these people confirming each other, it's overwhelming, and it's very tough. I don't know for you, but for me it's very tough. I'm very surprised to see that there are older people here. I really would have thought that we would be more youngsters here, because in my point of view, you would be the conservative ones, and we should be the progressive ones. We should be the ones that are trying to find the truth. You should be like, hey, it's been like that forever. What do you want? What do you care? And I'm surprised, and I'm very pleased to see that the fighting spirits is going to keep on, and that when I'm going to be your age, I'm going to keep on fighting, which is very, very encouraging for me, very motivating, and And what I say is that I always kept my mouth shut, just saying that I doubt about 9/11. I said it on French TV. I was accused to be a Holocaust denier because I said that. I'm suing 4 journalists right now because of that. My grandfather and grandmother went to the camps, so it's a very stupid things to say for them. And now I just have to admit that okay, there is enough proof, there is enough evidence, there is enough scientific facts to tell it as it is, and I think we should really go forward and not hold anything back, because this is scientific facts and nothing else. And it's too much to keep by ourselves, and I think it will go through because people, as you said, Laurie, people are, my father cannot take it, and my father went to the ghetto and came from a communist country and came to France to find freedom. So he knows what it should be. And when I talk to him about it, he says, "Stop! I can't take it anymore. Stop." And I think 10 years after, with less emotion, I don't know if we can say that, but with a little more background and, as you said, sir, more knowledge, way more knowledge, we have to go all the way. And what you presented, sir, and I didn't know that we're that close to actually go to put all this knowledge in action. I think you should come back on the mic and tell us exactly what you need, when you need it, because I don't think it's enough. It's not a lot of money, and it's very important that we get that first money to get things moving, and you need to explain to us exactly how we can do it. Thanks.
Mathieu? Yeah, he just pledged $50,000. Okay? He's a very famous filmmaker. If you've seen the movie Amélie, that's his. Amélie. Yeah, that's him. That's him. and he's got another one. He's got another one out there to straighten out a religion a little bit. But let me be precise. Each state that we're doing initiatives, that money has to come from the United States. The law is very clear on that. And so in Massachusetts, we will be reporting American money for that. I've set up an organization called Citizens 9/11 Investigative Commission. And that has got a bank account at Wells Fargo. We've already receiving money. And that's a national organization. Though it's a California corporation with a tax ID number and all of that, it's a national organization. We are not going to, when we do an initiative in California, we will operate from a California committee. When we do one in Oregon, it will be an Oregon committee. It will do one in Colorado, it will be a Colorado committee. So now those monies to get the stuff on the ballot is got to be American money. But the national organization that can pay for an educational campaign, that can pay for a staff to really make this thing work, money can come from anybody in the world. And I'm not bashful. And so what he suggested, that he's going to sponsor me to go to Paris as soon as we can put something together. And Niels came forward and said, it's Switzerland. Well, I know what's happening to the Swiss franc, and it is Switzerland. And plus I admire, it's the only place on earth that has a federal initiative. So they know it. And obviously there's more wealthy people in Switzerland than there is sin. So I'm prepared to go to Switzerland. So I'm at my age, I'm the Energizer Bunny. You just wind me up and point me in a direction and I'll go do it. And I'm not bashful, okay? I just don't respect authority, whether they got a lot of money or a little bit of money. It's whatever counts. And so I thank you for that, Mathieu, mon vieux. And two, I'll be in Massachusetts, going from every nook and cranny to get signatures. But if the message comes from Paris and Switzerland to go, I'm on the plane immediately. Thank you very much. Have I explained it? The money we need in Massachusetts to win, $300,000, American money. And same thing, about the same amount of money in Oregon. Now, California, which is very, very important, 1.5 million, 2 million. So that's and I need the money in the next 20 days, 300,000 from Massachusetts. Here, do the math. We've got to have our signatures in by the 23rd of November. And we got to hit the ground. That means you got to hire staff, put it all together. We can meet that criteria if we have beginning 100,000, 200,000 coming shortly after that, and the rest of it by the end of November. So we got the time to do it, and that's the reason why I'm prepared to do a trip in Europe. And on my body, I don't do this lightly, believe me. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mathieu, and thank you, Nels.
Merci encore une fois, Mathieu. Comme marque de reconnaissance, on va continuer en français, n'est-ce pas? Tout le monde est d'accord? Or perhaps not, since we have the questions in English. Let me begin with a comment that we received from one of our online respondents. I am so glad and so very impressed with how the expert panel has obviously taken this so seriously. That's a comment from online. And that we can, sorry, I'm losing this microphone. That we can add is a comment from one of some 60,000 people who have live viewed these hearings over the past 4 days. Now we'll continue with some questions from online viewers, and here's one for all of the witnesses. Do any of you feel that any of the 2012 presidential candidates will support a new investigation? Do please use the microphone at the table. Yes.
The question is, it's on? Yeah, it's on. Superficially, no. They wouldn't
You have
touch
to hold this microphone, excuse me, very close. The volume is not as good.
The answer to that question is a simple no, but that doesn't mean the no lasts forever. Because keep in mind, this issue, 9/11 truth, it goes across the entire spectrum of liberal to conservative. And so, so all you got to do is we get enough momentum where people begin to see it. You know what politicians are? They have to find out where the crowd is going so they can run to the head of it and be leaders. Otherwise, they're not leaders. So understand that if we get traction, some of the lesser ones will come in. And then we get real traction, then you'll scare the bejesus out of the presidential candidates because they won't know which way to go. And so that's when we implement. Now, do you want a commission, but do you want a citizens commission or do you want another government cover-up? So we'll play that game. So let me just tell you that anything is possible in politics and in life.
We have other questions that may relate to the same issue. Rather than having you pop up and down, I think I'll bring this over to you when I've posed the question or read the question. How will this jury have international authority to call witnesses and evidence?
Well, you have to come within the jurisdiction. You see, you got to keep in mind, if all we do it is in Massachusetts, that means that the venue of Massachusetts is where they have to cross the border. If they cross the border and they're under subpoena, they got to show, or they'll put them in jail. They're denying a subpoena of a de facto grand jury. So understand that's the whole concept of doing it in several states, because in a de facto kind of way, we do it in California, the largest state in the United States. We do it in Oregon. We do it in Colorado. We do it in South Dakota. We do it in Alaska. That means it restricts it. Now, keep in mind that a state like Texas has no initiative law, but they have 50 communities plus that have initiative powers. So these communities could go on record, and that's one of our tactics. Is here, you're Crawford, Texas. And if somebody can influence the city council of Crawford, Texas, to tie into, keep in mind this vessel, the Joint Powers Agreement, they've got no grand jury powers, but they do have moral persuasion. And so if we now go across the country and get the smaller communities, get everybody tied in, then the bigger communities say, hey, you know, it becomes an issue in the state legislature. And politicians, you got to keep in mind, politicians react to public opinion unless they can control public opinion. In a campaign, they control public opinion. But with the tactics that we will have, it will be, boy, there'll be a lot of unintended consequences. That's the best I could tell you. See, you got to keep in mind, when you ask a person precise answers, I don't know much more than you. Like on the website, they asked me how the commission would function. Well, I was very surprised with the question about the details of the functioning commission. Well, I had forgotten that I was the legislator, and the people that were asking the question didn't have the foggiest notion of how the Congress is organized. I mean, I would bore you to tears and tell you how legislation works. And so with the same thing with the initiative. So the commission, you can the basis of law is common sense. Take that to the bank. The basis of law is common sense. If it doesn't make common sense, it's a bad law.
Here's a related question. Sorry to cut in. Is there a risk that the initiatives could be overturned by the courts?
Oh, no. We're beyond that. You see, that's what the Secretary of Massachusetts, the Attorney General of Massachusetts, suppose she had denied us, and I've been through this, I've taken it. Here, I've taken the issue of the people's sovereign power to make laws all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. And that's when I changed tactics and said, the hell with it, we're going around the government. Now, whenever people question, and I've never had a political scientist or an attorney lay a glove on this concept that I'm going to share with you. In the Constitution of the United States, it says, we the people do ordain. Well, who ordains? God ordains, if you believe in God. And so God, who ordains, does not have to ask what he's created, or she's created, or it's created, for permission to change what it's created. Do you get that? That's fundamental theology and philosophy rolled into one. So if we the people, which started out as a myth, but now it's a reality, if we the people do ordain, then we do not have to ask the government to change the Constitution or make laws. And that's why we've got this device to go around the government. And I've got scholars, constitutional scholars, Akhil Amar in Yale, I got Harvard, I've got several major universities, all bought into it. And I got them on television buying into it. We recorded them. Okay? Is any other question?
Thank you very much, Senator Gravel. Here's a question for Mathieu. Have you seen the European film Zero? Might you do the same type of film?
Yeah, I saw Zero, which is an Italian movie. The problem, I've been thinking about it for 5 years, and honestly, I don't know if the subject should be 9/11 or should be the collapse of the system or should be the whistleblowers or the politicians. I don't know exactly what it should be, but I think after these 4 days here, I think yes, there should be. I think movies are very important today because of the failure of the medias, and I think movies are very important. You all seen Inside Job, and you've all learned about. You've all learned so much in 2 hours watching Inside Job than watching every day the TV. So I think it's very important. And from everything that we gathered here, there is a movie. You need to be able to condense those 4 days in 2 hours, and you can do it. But I think it can be done because we could have spent another couple of weeks here listening to these people. So if we manage to condense 3 weeks of hearings in 4 days, then we're probably able to squeeze those 4 days in 2 hours. And if we can do that, cinema is a very powerful vehicle. You're saying that we need a vehicle. Cinema is a vehicle, and it can change the perception of people. And Laurie, if you're willing to work with me on how to work on a script so that people can accept it, and because I would be like, you're stupid, you should listen to us. If you can do that, I think we should do a movie about it, yes.
Yes, if you could pass the microphone to Niels Harrit.
Regarding this movie, Zero, which was produced by Giulietto Cisa, I can inform you that Zero 2 has been made by Giulietto, and has premiere tonight on Russia Television, one of the two major public channels in Russia, Moscow. Thanks.
Niels, some of the questions that have come forward have been to witnesses from yesterday as well as today. So if we could pass the microphone back to Niels, this is a question addressed to Niels Harrit. If traditional explosives were used in the World Trade Center demolition, would their residues show up in dust, and did they?
Possibly, and I have not good hopes that you could see it, because these what you call conventional explosives, TNT and that kind of stuff, has a high vapor pressure, means that they evaporate over time. So I don't know if they can still be found after 10 years. We haven't had the resources to do the analysis yet. It may come, but if it's negative, does not indicate that conventional old-time explosives were not used. I don't think they'll survive 10 years in open space.
Kevin Ryan, is that a question that you could respond to?
Not better than that.
Thank you. This is a question that's addressed to David Chandler, who is not here, but perhaps one of the other witnesses could answer it. Were people killed when Building 7 collapsed? If not, how and when was it evacuated? I think David can respond to that one.
The official story, is that on?
It's on, but you have to hold it very close.
The official story is that there were no deaths. The official story may be false. What a surprise, huh?
And this is a question for Kevin Ryan. Kevin Ryan, have you approached the Union of Concerned Scientists with your evidence of fraud by NIST? I'm sure David Ray Griffin could also answer that question if he likes.
Yes, I've sent an inquiry to the Union of Concerned Scientists and have not had a response. I still think that it's a good idea to continue to pursue that organization. Their objectives appear to be along the lines of this sort of thing and other sometimes more environmentally related issues, but I think this is the kind of thing in public interest that the Union of Concerned Scientists would be interested in if we can just get them to overcome that initial reaction, the kinds of things that Laurie talked about.
Thank you. There's a question now at the top of the list here for David Ray Griffin. The evidence you presented strongly suggests that Flight 77 did not hit the Pentagon, or did or could not have hit the Pentagon. To honor the victims of this flight who died 10 years ago today, could you suggest a possible explanation as to where they died or where their remains would be?
No. There are so many possibilities as to what happened that we just don't have any basis for even speculating in a reasonable way about what really happened. Again, I repeat, all we can really say about most of these topics is the official story is false.
Thank you. A question for Senator Gravel. You say what you need is money. Don't you really need votes? If money equals votes, as you suggest, aren't you afraid of a war of money?
No, because there's no way that they can wage that. In Massachusetts and in the other states also, you have to register if you oppose something. Well, the time to oppose it is when it's on the ballot. So going out and getting petitions signed at malls and so forth, there's no opposition. Somebody may come by and yell at your guy or woman, but keep in mind, when I talk about the signature gathering, it's a professional process. Generally, you estimate maybe you can get 30% out of volunteers, but you can't base it on volunteers. You got to pay the money and get the professionals. And it's an interesting group of people. They travel the entire country for initiatives. So they really do this as a living and and of course, there's several other, I don't have the report, I'll get that tomorrow in Massachusetts. They've got several other petitions that have been certified. That means that if there's other organizations that have an initiative up and they're going to hire a contractor, well, we'll hire the same contractor and get a better price for our signatures. And you can get as much as, they'll take an ironing board, put it out in the mall, put a sign in front of it, and have 4 or 5 petitions there, and you go up and you want to sign one, and I did, because I was looking for this issue, and lo and behold, the lady said to me, well, would you sign the other petitions? And I said, well, I don't know anything about it. Well, that's okay. You're just permitting it to be on the ballot. You can make up your mind when you vote for it. And I signed 4 of the petitions. That'll give you an idea.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There's a question here for Peter Dale Scott. Can you comment on the story that Osama bin Laden's CIA codename was Tim Osman? The same document refers to a Ralph Ahlberg. Any information?
Well, I've seen the story. It's not the kind of story that I usually pick up. I try to only deal with stories that have many sources independent of each other. And I think, what all that is driving at, excuse me, is that there was some kind of CIA connection with bin Laden. And I think that's the large question, and the answer to that question is easier. The answer is yes. It was primarily Saudi. Bin Laden had very good relations with the royal family, and as did all of his family. He was part of the elite of Saudi Arabia. And of course that changed in 1990 when the royal family let American troops into Saudi Arabia, which offended him and set him on a new course. And I quoted actually from the deal that he made with the royal family. They let him go. They do your thing in other countries. And they've helped in Bosnia. They were absolutely on the same side. And ironically, so was the United States. But the deal was don't mess with Saudi Arabia or any other Arab country. And when we know that, then I don't think we have to worry about Tim Osman.
Thank you very much. A question for Laurie Manuel. Why can't the U.S. government simply say the war is for oil and have the public support it? Why the need for the elaborate false flag terrorist attack of 9/11?
That's a very good question, because they have done sort of the inferred justification and given every other reason under the sun. That is why they're doing it. So, for example, instead of saying that, first it was to find the terrorists, and then it was to give them democracy, and then it was to give them freedom. And in Afghanistan, it was to give the women rights. So they have given every other explanation under the sun. I mean, I think it's sort of in the background that it is for oil and for economic and military control of those regions. I think that's very obvious to everyone, but they're giving every other explanation that will satisfy people. And you know what? They accept it. I have people come up to me all the time and they say, don't you know how women in Afghanistan are being treated? And if it wasn't for the war on terror there, that they wouldn't be liberated. Like, it couldn't be worse for them there because of this. Like, I don't know. I don't have a perfect answer for it. It upsets me very much as well. And this is the other reason I wish people would look at things and make connections between them. That's the key there.
Yeah. Laurie, actually, Peter Dale Scott had a prior claim to the microphone here.
Well, very quickly.
Please remember to hold the microphone very close. I'm afraid the sound is weaker on on this?
I
particular one?
believe that both in Iraq and Afghanistan, it is in fact a fight to the control of oil. It's partly a pipeline going through Afghanistan. It's very much to influence the behavior of the rulers of Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan. They're going to behave differently if there's an American army to their right, just as there's a Russian army to their left. But they don't want to advertise that because that's what alienates the rest of the world from America. In fact, that's one of bin Laden's talking points, is they come here, they're stealing our oil. So they have to worry about the audience in other countries when they say it's not the oil. And just a bit about the women in Afghanistan. I think the Soviets were a terrible influence in Afghanistan, but there was, in Kabul, particularly and other cities, there was an educated public. A lot of them had been to schools in the Soviet Union. They weren't communists, it's just where they went. And to think that the 10 years of war in the 80s and what we've had now, that's been good for women on balance is crazy. They were better off before all this began, by far.
Thank you.
The oil deal's been written about extensively. If you subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, and I'm not talking about the editorial page, I'm just talking about just reading the reports. Oil has always been out there. So we've been telling, they've been telling us the truth, that we're interested in the oil. With respect to what Peter was just talking about, in 1998, the Congress passed a law. It's called the Silk Road Policy. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And what it said is that the land from China to Europe in the total underbelly of Russia is a land that's American vital interest. That now sets the stage for us to put all the military bases in these stands. And that's where the whole issue of the pipelines comes in. And you see it. You can, in the Washington Post, the New York Times, I've seen full-page spreads analyzing all this pipeline stuff, and you can just tell. So media does put it out there, but then after they've done it once, well, we've done our job. And of course, we all know that you got to say something 8, 10 times before it sinks into the people. Okay?
Thank you. I'm not sure who should respond to this question. This is a question regarding hijack alert mechanisms on aircraft. If the probability of an alert not being sent for one aircraft is 1 in 10,000, then the probability of it not being sent for all 4 is 10 to the minus 3. I'm not very good at reading equations here, but the conclusion of is 10 to the minus 12, 1 in 10 to the minus 12. I haven't had a chance to check these statistics, but this is the question. And this, I think, is a reference to pilots punching in the 4-digit hijacking code. If it's improbable that a pilot would not have done so in one aircraft, then obviously the kind of cumulative improbabilities of all 4 hijacked aircraft not sending in the simple 4-digit code is very small. And the author of this question comments that this is just a small beginning to an improbable chain of coincidences in the coincidence theory. Are there comments?
Yes, that's a very good comment, and that's one of the main arguments I make, that there simply were no hijackers, in the sense that that the planes were hijacked. If there had been, well, like the official story about United 93 was that it took at least 30 seconds for the terrorists to force their way into the cockpit. Well, punching out these the codes, it takes 2 or 3 seconds, and you've got 2 pilots. So there would have been been very easy to send out the hijack system warning, and the writer's right that even if this had failed in one particular one, it would not have failed in all 4. So that's very strong evidence that planes were not hijacked by Al-Qaeda terrorists.
Hang on to the microphone, please, Professor Griffin, because we have some online questions here directed to you, beginning with this one. What keeps you going in the continuing fight for 9/11 truth?
Really good red wine. Which was thanks to Michael the other night. Serious answer. The stakes are just so high. The world is being not simply changed and transformed, it is being destroyed in these decades. And there have been a lot of really bad things prior to 9/11. The United States had been an empire for a century and a half. It got really going in 1898. But this is a qualitative difference, what began with 9/11. And now what is going on with all these countries. I mean, these statements, we don't get them just from one person, it's from several people, that the intention was to knock off at least 7 Muslim-dominated countries. And Saudi Arabia was on the list for some of these, and on some of these lists. So they were really talking about just taking over all of this area. And so, Libya was on the list, and now it is taken over. And now Syria seems to be in the sights, and Yemen. And certainly Iran have been in the sights for so long, but it would not be such an easy target. But that still seems to be the intention. So as Kosodowski made the point the other night at another meeting, all of these things have their fountain in 9/11. And without the story of 9/11, they would not have any rationale for any of these projects. So there could be nothing more important to deal with than 9/11.
Thank you. We're not yet going to. We're not yet going to release you from the spotlight. I have several questions on anomalies that, again, for David Ray Griffin. Others might want to answer them as well. That I will pose together, and I believe there may be time for one question after that, but we're running close to the end of this session. I can assure everyone who has sent in questions that they will receive subsequent responses. These questions are of value to us. They will become part of the archive of the hearings, and they will receive answers. But for the moment, questions about anomalies. Here's the first one. During the investigations, were the boarding passes of any of the supposed hijackers found? Second one, second one. Would you consider Donald Rumsfeld being out on the Pentagon lawn assisting the rescue after the attack an anomaly? Third one, is there any truth to the story that there were 5 Mossad agents arrested and then released on 9/11 for celebrating? Or arrested for celebrating, I suppose, and then released?
The third one first. Yes, that certainly seems to be true. No reason to deny that that's true. Rumsfeld on the lawn. Yes, but what is really the anomaly is now the claim that he was not part of this video conference where he knew everything that was being discussed. But now the official story is, well, he was in his office, he went out on the lawn and to help with the rescue thing, which of course would be a stupid thing for the Secretary of Defense to be spending his time doing. So it was a photo op. So certainly it's an anomaly. And then on the first point, which was?
first one was the question of whether the boarding passes of any of the supposed hijackers were found.
Well, the official story is, yes, that there were not boarding
The
passes.
passports were, yes.
There were passports or visas, supposedly some in the Pentagon, one from United 93, but there are obvious reasons why these are just false. So I've written quite a bit about it in my book, so I'll give it to Peter.
I just want to comment on the anomaly of the National Command Authority. It's the President and it's the Secretary of Defense, and the President wasn't there, so it was only the Secretary of Defense. The country's under attack. The President and the Command Authority isn't where he's supposed to be. Now, my explanation for this, he was out, he did get photographed putting people on a stretcher. This was a cover to explain, because he was out for maybe, who knows, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. But there's about half an hour when he's not where he should have been. And there are senior military people who have said that this was practically treasonable. My explanation in my book, The Road to 9/11, is that he and Cheney and the President are secretly communicating on a back channel, which I think is the continuity of government channel. I can't prove that, but it makes sense. If you're going to proclaim continuity of government, you would do it on the continuity of government channel. That's not an absurd idea. And here is a whole alternative channel, which the other people, I was talking about clearances this morning, people in the PEOC weren't cleared for that. People in the NMCC or whatever it was weren't cleared for it. They were doing this privately, and that's when I think they instituted COG and started a new era in the constitutional history of the United States.
Thank you very much, Peter Dale Scott. I think we will close our question period on that really crucial point, the institution of continuity of government. This is a subject that has really been opened up in an illuminating way by Peter Dale Scott in a sequence of essays, as well as in his book, The Road to 9/11. Please again be assured that questions will receive subsequent responses. This has been a fascinating question and response period, and I'd like to thank those who have submitted questions, both online and here in the room, for the range and quality of those questions, as well as our witnesses for their responses to them.